Time to begin. It is very dark here. Hardly anything can be seen. Please recommend an action.
Turn on the damn lights.
Unfortunately, it's too dark in here and it's hard to tell where the lights are.
In that case, search through your pockets.
Feels like something metallic with a rubber grip. But there's no lighter, matches, or flashlight.
Walk over to the red thing.
As near as you can tell, the little red light is only a foot or so away from your face.
Reach out and grasp for the red light.
Ah, there we go. Ruby can see now.
Examine that thing we found in her pockets.
Apparently it's a hand-turned can opener.
Grab the handle near the ceiling of the cell.
A row of small mesh holes open in the wall, venting in fresh air.
Yell, "Is anyone there?"
Is anyone there?
Ruby yells, but there's no response. Her voice echoes in the small room.
Attempt to tap into her latent vampiric powers to see if she has a high enough level in protean to turn into mist and escape the cell through the mesh wiring.
Sadly, Ruby has no vampiric powers.
Failing that, press every button she can find, in sequence.
Ruby gets the feeling that pressing all the buttons would probably be a bad idea. There are buttons of multiple colors. Which one should she try?
For the hell of it, purple. We already pressed the red button, the green buttons always get pressed in every media ever, and the blue button, well, that's pretty. So we don't want to smudge it with our fingerprints just yet.
Sweet success! Ruby presses the purple button and the top of the cell suddenly opens to cool, clean air.
Get out. Look around.
Ruby surveys her surroundings. There are no doors here except for the portal in the north wall of this room. Unfortunately, there are metal shutters over the door.
Search that trash can in the back, or whatever that is.
Ruby tries her best, but the lid of the barrel refuses to be pulled from its base. It won't open.
Check the shelves.
Do you mean the metal shutters? They're blocking the portal to the north.
Look for a way to open that other cell. More friends would be nice right now.
The cell/locker/coffin on the ground has a latch on the outside, but it's sealed with what appears to be a digital lock. There's no obvious way to undo the lock from the locker itself.
Use can opener on can thing in the back.
The barrel's lid comes up with the can opener's tenacious efforts. Inside there's a few small lengths of bare electrical wire, but nothing else. Ruby stows a piece of wire in her inventory.
Can I get a loadout of all of Ruby's abilities, general knowledges, and physical capabilities?
Ruby has no magical or otherwise extraordinary powers. She has no knowledge of where she is or how she got here, and though she's not a specialist and holds no particularly special knowledge, she is reasonably competent with things most people would be. Her physical capabilities are varied. She's limber, in good shape, but not particularly strong. She is currently carrying a can opener and a bare length of wire.
Well, shit. She's a rabbit. There's some wire. Chew on that shit.
Ruby is above such primitive practices as chewing on wire and cannibalizing her young. If she had any. And besides, that would not be productive right now.
Schlick furiously.
Ruby has slightly bigger concerns at the moment. Slightly. But besides, there could be hidden cameras around.
Check the terminal next to the door.
It would appear these controls are out of order. But even Ruby can tell this looks like an easy fix. Firstly, one of the wires is missing. Splicing it back together would be easy enough with the bare length of wire Ruby found. Then, there are connectors at the back of the control panel itself, so it will need to be screwed back into place.
Knock on the other cell.
Ruby knocks insistently on the metal locker cell, but there's no audible or visible response.
Can we open the trap at the back left corner, but not go down yet in case there's no ladder?
Unfortunately, it's the other way around. There's some kind of access shaft in the corner of the room, complete with a ladder set into the wall. But it's barred off and Ruby can't fit through.
Move the remains of the barrel to one side. See if anything lies under it.
Ruby tries to shove the big barrel aside, but her physique is just too admirably girlish. It won't budge.
Create a saw using the barrel pieces, wrapping the handle with the bare electrical wire. Attempt to saw through bars.
Not only would a saw made out of razor-sharp barrel metal and bare wire be incredibly dangerous to use in any way, It certainly wouldn't have the durability or control to cut through these bars, which appear to be a stronger metal than the barrel anyway. You do get +1 ingenuity for your idea, though.
Can she attempt to fashion a crude screwdriver using the barrel shards and either the handle of the can opener, if it slides off easily, or by shredding off part of the currently worn clothing? I think it's an important piece of information that needs to be established before we take any further action.
Ruby sees where you're going with this.
Is Ruby wearing panties today?
Yes. A quick check verifies that she's got her underwear accounted for.
Check the terminal situated on the wall behind the barrel.
The digital console appears to be waiting for a command.
Just so you know, I intended to remove an extraneous piece of clothing for the sake of hand protection, not for anything else.
Ruby doesn't have enough clothing on for anything to really be considered extraneous.
Enter command open locker.
That seemed to do something. A soft click comes from the other locker.
While we're at it, enter command sound horn.
The console doesn't appear to recognize that command.
Also enter open door.
That got a response, but unfortunately the results weren't what Ruby had hoped for.
I guess we should look in that other locker now.
Ruby takes the 2 small coins off the top of the locker and pockets them. She opens it up to find... there's no one inside the locker. Instead, all that's inside is a pair of rubber gloves.
That's a lot of evidence pointing to that schlicking session.
Heavy rubber gloves don't make for very enjoyable schlicking.
Enter open access shaft.
It's asking for a code.
Don the gloves, then fix the terminal with the wire?
A brilliant idea, especially since it negates the possibility of electrocution. Ruby sets to work splicing the door panel's wires back together.
Inspect the coins.
The 2 coins seem to just be ordinary-looking quarters, but the edges make functional screwdrivers for the flathead screws in the panel. Ruby screws the repaired panel back in place, and the up arrow button lights up green.
Press the green button.
Here goes nothing. Ruby presses the button. The metal shutters start to lift. Oh. It would appear that Ruby is underwater.
Push the down arrow.
The down arrow still isn't lit, and doesn't respond to being pressed.
Take off gloves. Reach out. Touch the water.
Thankfully, there's a big glass window separating Ruby from a horrible, drowning death.
Look outside. See how far it is to the surface. Also, see if any predatory fish are visible.
The water is murky. Ruby can see neither the surface, nor any details on the sea life swimming past the glass.
Enter open access shaft 017.
Using the number on the plaque outside as a reference, Ruby attempts to try opening the bars to the access shaft via the computer terminal once more. After entering the code, the bars on the grate finally slide open with a loud clank. The access shaft is finally accessible.
Climb down. Hope nothing reaches up the shaft and grabs her from below.
Ruby descends down the access shaft's ladder. Congratulations. You've escaped the first room. Ruby descends the access hatch and comes upon a new room. There's lots to see here.
Say hello.
Hi, my name's Ruby.
Tom. Hi.
He doesn't seem particularly chatty.
How long have you been here? Do you know where we are?
Woke up here. Haven't gotten out since.
Tom won't say how long he's been here. He seems uninterested with this particular line of questioning, and returns to contemplating his little sculpture.
Walk into the grid.
It's just a metal grating.
Carve pumpkin into the shape of a keycard and insert into slot.
Unfortunately, you're not sleuthy enough to figure out how to do this.
What be that in the fish tank? Other than the fish. Looks like a buried treasure.
The fish tank seems to contain, along with the fish, a tiny treasure chest for decoration.
Ask about the statue.
This is my magnum opus. I call it The Room is Boring.
It appears to consist of a tin can, a letter opener, and a metal plate with screws on its 4 corners.
Any of the fish look dangerous?
The fish are all quite tiny, and as far as Ruby can tell, none of them are sharks.
And what is that grate below the tank?
It appears to be another sort of access hatch, this time with metal shutters over it. It's labeled Z-hatch, and just underneath where that's written, there's an empty space with 4 holes. It looks like something used to go there.
Ask about those round things in the wall next to him.
These things on the wall are 5 very functional buttons, but I've only pressed the one in the middle so far.
Examine that upside-down flower, light, water sprinkler thing above Tom.
It's some sort of switch that can be pulled.
Use can opener to cut through the grate.
The grate is thin. But given that it's a cell, the metal is clearly very strong, and unlike the barrel, it's not worn. The can opener would have no chance against it.
Grab treasure, then dump the aquarium on Tom.
The fish tank is bolted to the pedestal it's on, which in turn is bolted to the floor. But the little treasure chest is coming with Ruby. It gets added to her inventory, a little wet. It's about the size of her hand.
Open treasure chest.
It refuses to open. It must be locked.
Get the plate, screw it in, and tell Tom to press those buttons.
Firstly, I'm not handing you this weird plate with funny numbers on it. It's part of my opus. Secondly, it wouldn't fit through the grate even if I wanted to. And thirdly, when I pressed that middle button, I was electrocuted. There's no way I'm pressing another button on that wall until I'm confident that it won't result in another near-death experience. Also, I have no clue what that overhead hatch does, never seen it open.
Remind us, what is Ruby's current inventory?
Ruby is carrying 2 coins, a can opener, a pair of rubber gloves, and now a tiny treasure chest.
Try to convince Tom.
I won't believe a single word you say unless you press another button.
Fine by me, I don't trust you either.
Examine Z-hatch.
It's a small portal in the north wall. Ruby might be able to fit through if she crawled. But it's a moot point since it's blocked by a metal shutter.
Hand over gloves.
The gloves won't fit through the grate.
Try prying opening the chest with the coins.
No luck. There's not enough of a gap to pry it.
Ask him about the funny numbers on the plate.
Could I at least know what's written on the plate?
Nope. I don't trust you now, so I'm not gonna tell you what the magic numbers are.
Maybe getting him to dislike you was a bad idea. You're probably going to need those numbers.
Tell him you'll sex him up if he cooperates.
That seems a little extreme. Ruby's not eager to just give up her body for some stranger to ravage just so she can get a few numbers. Especially if there's an alternative. And anyway, she's shy. There must be a way to win over the cat that's not quite so embarrassing.
How about Ruby just flashes him her tits? It's still an immediate sexual incentive, but it's way less embarrassing than sex, and won't involve any unwanted touching.
Oh no, unfortunately for all parties involved, Ruby is as flat as a board. That probably won't work.
Give the cat a fish.
Ruby slips Tom some of the small fish as a gesture of goodwill. He's hungry, so he accepts.
Apologize to Tom and mention nonchalantly that you were jealous of his epic opus.
Feeling a bit calmed by your offering of fish, Tom graciously offers to rotate the piece to face you.
Go upstairs and enter Open Z-hatch 211 into the terminal.
Sure enough, Tom's code seems to work, and the system accepts the function.
Guess there's only one thing to do. Climb back down, tell Tom you'll see where the hatch goes, and crawl through it.
Climbing back down, Ruby finds that the Z-hatch is now open. Just on the other side of the wall is a small room.
I'll be right back.
Tom nods absently in reply. Ruby gets on all fours and crawls through the hatch with a series of rather suggestive movements. But since that's boring, let's just skip ahead to the part where she emerges in the room on the other side.
Explain what each button on the diagram seems to do.
Ruby has no idea what the diagram means. Perhaps you should interpret.
Take diagram of buttons and give it to Tom.
Looks like there's something behind the diagram.
Inspect what looks like a safe on the wall in this room.
It's some sort of metal cabinet, but it's locked up with a padlock.
Look through what looks like a grate in the door to the left of the room.
The slot on the door is closed and appears to be opened only from the other side.
Take down that picture of a fish.
It looks like an eye, actually.
Okay, middle is electrocute, as Tom knows. Left of middle is death, so don't press that. Left of death is either fire or water, so let's not press that either. Right of middle is grating. Could open the cell or close the Z-hatch. Have Tom push that one. Right of grating is down arrow. It could lower the bars or lower the ceiling, so have Tom push that if the grating button doesn't work.
You bring the diagram to Tom. He's already starting to trust you, and with the added incentive that only one electrocution symbol is present on the diagram, you manage to convince him the other buttons will not administer shocks. It's time to choose. What button should Tom press?
Button 1.
Tom hesitates, standing close to the grate, then presses button 1. Not for a moment, considering the diagram could have been coded based on the key sequence listed on the wall panel by the fish tank. Luckily, that doesn't seem to be the case anyway. But nothing appears to happen, except that the button sinks into the wall just like the electro button did, and for a moment, there seems to be a faint, distant beep.
Check the aforementioned panel.
In actuality, the panel seems to be some sort of card reader. It has 3 lights, all red right now.
Go back upstairs.
On returning to the first floor, Ruby notices something's changed.
Press the green button.
Ruby presses the down arrow button, and in the far corner of the room, another hatch opens up. Looking down, Ruby sees that the shaft leads straight into Tom's cell, but there's no ladder.
So it's flipped. Have Tom press button 2 now.
Could you press button 2?
Tom presses the second button, which causes the metal shutters on the Z-hatch to shut immediately.
Tell him to press button 2 a second time.
Tom presses the button again and the hatch slides open.
Check inventory again. What do we have?
Ruby is carrying 5 items at the moment.
Let's take a closer look at those symbols. Try and combine each of the items with each other in any and all ways that would not destroy any of the items.
Using 1 coin, the rubber gloves, the tiny chest, and a piece of the button diagram, Ruby fashions together the Junkatron missile launcher. This baby could break through a steel wall. No, wait. They don't. Too bad. I thought you were really onto something there.
Ha ha ha. Hey, does the computer have a help function? Can it provide some information on what this place is?
The help and information prompt is markedly unhelpful. The system seems to be local rather than connected to any external source, which means no internet.
Try to see if Ruby can reach for the lever on Tom's ceiling through the trapdoor.
Unfortunately, the shaft is too far to reach the lever from above.
So Tom has a letter opener, a tin can, and the metal plate in his cell. Holy shit, drop the can opener down the chute and have him open the can!
Look out below!
Tom sets to work opening the can. Success! Tom completely mangles the tin can beyond anything usable due to his incompetence in operating the can opener. But from the inside of the sealed can, he recovers an access card.
Have him toss up the card and the letter opener.
Despite Tom's impressive and manly physique, the card has too much air resistance because of its shape and refuses to be tossed up the shaft.
Toss it so the edge goes into the wind, Tom. Duh.
It's no use. The access card can't be thrown that way without fluttering uselessly out of control. The letter opener, on the other hand, sails through the shaft easily.
Open up the treasure chest using the letter opener.
Unfortunately, there are still no cracks in the treasure chest big enough to pry anything in. It's sealed flush.
Can he throw the panel with 4 screws up?
No problem for someone with such a manly physique.
Make a wire rope to pull the card up.
Sadly, there's not nearly enough wire left in the barrel to make a cord down. Even less considered they'd have to be twisted together well enough to hold. Even if you cannibalize the circuit panel, it wouldn't be enough.
Okay, it's obvious there's a way to get the card out without using method of throwing, so let's go look for useful stuff in the Z-hatch room.
Wisely giving up on this poorly imagined line of thought, Ruby descends back to explore the lower levels more, now armed with a heftier inventory. She waves to Tom, who she is happy to see is still alive.
The plate has cloned itself.
Alright, so I'm not perfect. Which would you prefer, accuracy or speed? I'm doing my best to keep up with you here. Now let's move on.
Now how about screwing the plate back where it belongs?
Ruby decides to replace the nameplate before exploring the Z room again. Despite the fact that there are no visible mechanisms, once the plate is replaced, an access card emerges from a hidden slot on the fish tank's pedestal.
Use access card in slot.
The card reader eats the card. It's gone. In response, one of the lights turns from red to green.
So it does need 3 cards. Time to go through the Z-Hatch room.
Ruby re-enters the Z room. Something seems different.
Say hello to whoever's behind the door.
Hello?
Ruby's attempts at conversation are futile. The eyes stare coldly and silently from behind the slot in the door.
Examine couch.
The only interesting thing about this couch is how unremarkable it is. It doesn't even have a distinct cushion to rifle through.
Try to remove the eye. Use the letter opener to pry the frame.
Ruby fiddles with the letter opener, and in doing so finds out that it fits perfectly into the empty pupil of the eyeball painting. It locks into position. How about that? A soft click comes from the door. Maybe it's unlocked. She doesn't remember if that handle had been there before or not.
Open the door.
Fair enough.
Go into the closet/hallway of death. You know what you must do.
It's a small closet, not much room inside. It reeks of death. But at this point, what choice does Ruby have?
Run!
Ruby flees the room as fast as she can, but the monstrous thing is hot on her heels, snaking after her.
Shut the hatch! Shut the hatch!
Shut the hatch!
As Ruby re-enters the room, she shouts at Tom to press button 2 again, and fast. Tom is already in a confused panic after hearing the unearthly screams. Tom presses the button.
Well, I assume it's dead. Now that the panic's over, head back into the Z room. Check the closet the monster was in for items, or see if anything is visible in the remains.
Tom opens the hatch just to make sure the monstrous thing is dealt with. No signs of movement come from it or the room beyond, and there is only silence. Ruby knows that with Tom behind the grate, if she doesn't do this, no one will. Inside the small closet is a ball of string. Ruby takes it with her.
There's something gold in the remains. Pick it up.
It appears to be a teeny tiny key.
Use it on the tiny treasure chest.
It clicks open softly. There's an access card inside.
Use the string to retrieve the card now. Is it long enough?
Ruby calls down the instructions, then lowers the string. Tom ties up the card on the end, and Ruby pulls it up. Ruby heads back into the room with the cell.
Could you let me out now? I'd really like to come out. I'm scared that I'm trapped, and could you please let me out now? Please, let me out. Please don't leave me here.
Let him out.
Ruby uses the 2 remaining access cards, and the reader promptly turns green for all 3 lights.
Hug him. You have both been through a lot together. He was almost electrocuted to death and had to trust a complete stranger to do something he knew could possibly do the same to him again. And I don't think I have to tell you what horrors Ruby has faced. Moral consolation, damn it. Hug.